And welcome. In this Star Valor video here, we are going to explain all the weapons effects, the gunners effects, how the weapons work, the best weapons to use and craft in this game and how to craft them, and everything like that. So let's go over some of this stuff right now. So your weapons in this game are pretty much important, and customizing your weapons is the way to go for most of the weapons in this game and all their effects. And you can get more weapons on your ships by getting a skills in there and taking them, and that's what the combat skills right there. You can get a +1 weapon per class of the ship. Self-explanatory. The other one way you can get is a space pilot will give you another +2, and there is a perk that I know of at least, and this dogfighter one that gives you another +1 space to your ship. And you can get this perk, by killing 100 ships that are your higher level or higher, and you got to be using a class 3 or smaller ship while you're doing it. And then you unlock this perk, and that is the 3 ways to increase your gun capacities on your ship, and that is this number right here, So you can increase this capacity for weapons on there, and some of the ships have no limits on how the sizes they have their weapons are, and then some of them do. So the ones that have the numbers on them have a limit, and that represents their limit. And the 0 out of 2 means that space is occupied. It's the free space right here. So if this was empty, it would say 2 out of 2, and that is the space occupied by the gun. So your guns can't be bigger than 2 spaces sizes. Like this one up here, you can barely see that 12. It says you can have up to 12, but the other special effect is like 1 gun in there only. So you gotta make use of it as best as you can. Now going around with your guns, you can move your guns through your different things in there. The smaller ships, they're going to have limited number, but that's easy enough. You just click on your gun and it'll ping off where it is, and then you can move it around to whatever you want, as long as there is space available on there for your guns and stuff like that. And the other thing too is with your pilots, later on you're gonna get gunners for your pilots. They will automatically fire for you, or for if you're doing point defense, or you can do it manually controlled and assign keys for them. But the different effects like range, there's a set value for range which gets added onto the guns, and then there's a percentage value, and there's heat generation loss, there's critical damage, flat damage, and all that kind of stuff for different damages. You're better off, picking and choosing what you want for your weapons, but I would go with flat damage and critical damage, and range is what you're going to be going for the most effect. I like range the most myself, just so you can actually hit guys from farther away, and things like this with just +27 to range type of a deal from this guy right here. The flat value that gets added into your guns, it gets some of the guns in here have conversions where let's say you get half the range. This gets added on top. Well, at least I don't know if it gets added on top for 100%, but I'm pretty sure it gets added on top because the ship enhancements like this +20, that range gets added in on top of whatever the range is, after it gets cut in half. So this effect takes effect after these things get cut in half for your weapons, your ranges and stuff like that. So that's how you deal with the range in there. But let's go back to the weapons here on my ship, and what should we note first? Just adding them there, it's pretty self-explanatory. You get this, the later on in the ships are going to have arcs, so they only fire in this arc. They're going to have special effects. This one fires 3 different shots, so your shot gets converted into 3 shots and with less damage type of a deal. And that's what the stars mean. They're a little bit better at what they're going to be doing. There's different effects, different for specialized weapons. They'll have different. All the ships will have their own special ability right there, and each of the ships is going to have, each of the class 5 ships, they're going to have a version of them that have this type of weapon right here, and it has a 1 weapon slot where you can have up to 12 space on there, and it converts it into a charged weapon with extra size and extra range, and less heat, and it uses flux for extra damage, that type of thing. They're all the factions are going to have a ship like this. And this is your main gun for one-shotting stuff. And the Vanguard have a much better version. If you wanted to know, they have 25% energy damage on all their ships, and their special weapon slot has another 25% damage. So they double stack the extra energy damage, making them super powerful, and also they get less duration, and they have other bonuses too on theirs, because they just keep stacking up the bonuses for the Vanguard on there. So they're optimally used for blasting like that. But let's make use of the best weapons to use for these things. When you're first starting off and you don't have much choices on your ship space, and you don't have all the legendary stuff and the best gear in the game, but you still want to be powerful and have a good gun, I would recommend you going with the railgun and make that up there right there, because it's a railgun. It just uses a little bit of, it'll just use some of your ammo up there, just a little bit of ammo. It's a one-shot type of a deal, and you can get great damage off of it and a lot of crit off of it too. So yeah, I modified this one here to have extra crit, so it's 100% crit chances on there too. The cool thing about the railgun is its effect to double tap guys. So its piercing effect right there, it pierces up to 4 targets. The shields count as a target that can be pierced. So it pierces the shields, and then since it counts as a pierced, it will hit the hull too. And then when you damage the shields and kill the shields off, the rest of that damage goes to the hull. So that means that you can get a double the damage. So this will, per target, this actually works as a double the damage type of thing. So that 11k damage there, if we're ignoring all the extra bonuses to it, if it did 11k, it would do 22k because it would be hitting the shields and the hull at the same time because of its pierce effect, and then hit anything else behind it too. So yeah, it's a pretty neat effect on there. That's why I actually recommend using it. All the weapons in this, lots of weapons in this game have energy uses and heat usages, and that doesn't really matter for this ship. It's very low energy, very low heat, and it's like a one-shot type of a deal. You can easily get this done on any of your ships for very effective damage to do on them. Now the other weapons to note on these ships right here is the missiles. Now the drops you can find, like the Peacemaker for example, the special weapons that they get dropped in this game are specially crafted weapons that you can't really match yourself. They mix and match different boosters, and so when you're crafting weapons you got different boosters and stuff like that, and they make their own stuff up, and they did a better job on the Peacemakers than what you can make because the Peacemakers can go to legendary and you can't make your own weapons crafted into legendary. But the other weapons versus legendary versus what you can craft, don't cut it. You can make better burst weapons than what this one would be. For example, like the Vengay heavy laser and the capital beam lasers you can find in this game. Capital pulse, where's the capital laser beam, space 10, ultra lasers and stuff like that, doom cannons. You can make better than this yourself, even though you can find legendary versions of them. You can make better yourself. But yeah, the missiles are really nice to use because they have no heat and they have no energy usage. So you don't have to worry about heat or energy at all. For your small ships, it's really effective just to use these things right here, and you just have to worry about a little bit of ammo. For the rest of the weapons in the game that require ammo, I wouldn't recommend using any of them basically throughout the whole game because it just takes up too much space. Space is too much. It's too much of a worrisome thing to do, is worry about space, and the missiles have that huge long range and they can track when you target the guys. Type of a deal. So let's go back to the ship there and do some more examples on crafting weapons and stuff like that, and show you the different effects, because that was not the best weapon you can make in the game. If I knew he was going to be complaining about that right away, because yeah, the railgun is not going to be your best choice. It is your best choice for at the start of the game for the weak weapon there because of the pierce effect, because you get the double tap on there. But we can take a look at the damage here right now, and it says 11k. If we unequip that and put the charging laser on here, I did unequip the wrong one. Yeah, stupid. Go back on there. Well, who cares? We're not even using you anyways. Now we can go back there and take it off and put the charging laser on here. So this guy here, it says 23k. So before I said you get a double tap on there, which means that the railgun's base damage would be 22k, and this one is 23k. But this weapon here gets 3 shots, not all together. So it's 1 shot outweighs. The railgun's 1 shot, but it gets 2 more of them. So yeah, this is like 3 times the damage. This is like one of the first weapons you're going to be wanting to be using at the start of the game after you get the railgun. So once you get your energy production up there, you can get this one here. Now this one here is built to design with easily made. It's just a heavy plasma mount, and you add all the effects that add damage. So you can see right there, it has a charging, it has overflow, it has slow fire, and everything like that is added on there. And it gets converted into a charge weapon. It's like 4-second wait and 4 seconds a shot. You're gonna get 3 shots off, and it's going to be using on there, could you explain that too? This here thing that says 100% flux damage, that does not work. It's not going to drain all 7 of my flux charges up there, and I'm not going to get 700% damage. It converts it into that thing over there that says 3 flux charges for 25% damage. That's what you're going to get added on there for your weapons, and any weapon you put in there, it gets converted into that for all the different weapons, all the different ships. So don't worry about the flux part. It's just going to use 3 flux, and you're going to get 75% damage. That is all you're going to get off of it, and of course you're going to get the critical effect going on there for your critical damage that you have boosted in there somewhere. But yeah, this guy sucks up a lot of energy. You need 1,200 energy a second to use this thing, and you need a whole bunch of heat to use this too. This one drains the heat, but since it is a charged weapon, you have 4 seconds to cool down, so we don't have to worry about heat. So I don't have to worry about my low 57 heat I have sitting down there, and this one takes 375 because it is a burst. It is a charging slow weapon, so we can fire this off. It'll suck up the energy. It'll overheat it, but I got 4 seconds of wait for my next shot to go off. There you have it. all 3 shots. So there you go. You just overly powered and overkilled 3 different guys right there with this weapon. Then you got a huge cooldown to go. We can make something even stronger when we go into the custom weapon menu here. Well, this was customized made, and I just told you how. But we go to the crafting menu and the customized weapon menu, and we want to go with continuous fire. Like if you're using Venge or something like that, you maybe want continuous, because that is overall way more powerful. And continuous effect, like the heavy mount in here, and even with the plasma sensors is better. The heavy mount adds 60% damage, but takes twice the space. It's a damage loss, but with the base damage on the plasma, it was higher, and that's why I was using that. But the green one, it can't go continuous, but the green one, it can go continuous. Continuous takes up a double the space per core, so we can have 6 cores in there to get our 12 space, and we have free boosters in there. We always want a damage booster. Can't stack these, unfortunately. The Nobles mod, you might see that in there. That's one's a little bit tricky to use. Well, it's kind of annoying to use because it lowers your damage by 20% and it lowers your heat and energy thing. So that is something you might want to use for constant effect beams later on. Or earlier on, I mean, but yeah, I wouldn't use it. This kills the damage. Just don't worry about your actual damage going on there. So we're gonna have to worry about heat on the continuous one. So we're gonna stack up our heat sinks right there, and we can add this little thing right here that, you know, it makes energy cost a little bit more, but we get some more free boosters. And since we want the most damage, we can add 3 more crit right there free. If we add any more boosters, it's gonna take up more space, and it takes 0.5 per 1 type of a deal, and we don't want to spend that on our boosters. I have the skill that cuts that in half, and since it's on there for the cores, this would actually be a space of 1 because it gets doubled for continuous and heavy mount. Those boosters get doubled in space, but then they get cut in half again by the skill. So it's 0.5, but I never go over top of the limit, so we got it boosted. And we're already using a charging weapon, so we're going to charge it up to maximum value. The bigger the charge, because we're not worried, we have a big cooldown anyways. And then we can go and overload it. So overloading is something you might not want to do because of that 50%. You get 25% damage for 50% of the cost. It kind of sucks, but if you want the most powerful weapon in the game, that's what you do to do it. You have to do that, and then you can build your stuff to go around it and build it that way. So we build this weapon here. We go back to the hangar and let's upgrade it to epic value, and we can check out the damage at least. So this one here at 23k, that's 3 shots at 23, so that's close to 70k damage overall. And if we can get this charging, overflowing constant laser beam to go, this is 35k a second. And then if you might note down there, it fires for 7 seconds now, not 4. It used to say 4, but this weapon here up here that converts stuff, it converts the laser beam into a 7-second one instead of a 4-second one. So we have to worry about the energy cost of 3,000 a second for 7 seconds, and we have to worry about the heat cost of 400 heat a second, and we have to worry about that 7 seconds, and we have 57, so that's not going to work as it is right now. You have to heavily modify your ship to fire this thing, and it can be done. I can do it on this ship, but you have to sacrifice a whole bunch of stuff on your ships, and this is for later on, but of course the damage will kill it, right? You get 7 seconds of that damage, plus its bonuses and stuff like that. It's really overpowered, and to do that I would have to go in here, and I can't sacrifice my batteries, but I would have to go in here and sacrifice maybe my speed booster. I'll take that off, and I gotta take out all my shields. I gotta take off my shield chargers. We don't need the scanner, I guess. We can take off the improved tractor beam. And then we need 2 more space, I think. So we gotta take off the where is it? The scanner. Well, whatever's for space. It doesn't matter. We'll just take all this stuff off anyways. We have to go back to our crafting menu because I don't have enough that I know of. All right, there we go down to our heat sinks. And where's the heat sinks? Take this off there so I don't see that crap. There we go, heat sinks. We'll build a couple of those, and then we'll go down to. I got a pirate heat sink, so that'll help too. There's the pirate heat sink. We'll equip that and equip the rest of my heat sinks. Oh yeah, we need power. So yeah, let's not forget the power before I fill up with the heat sinks. Down to here, I have 2 power supplies I can add in there to get to just enough if I can actually cover it. There we go. I got a epic Venge large reactor and a regular Venge reactor. And we go back to our hangar. How much space do we have? A little bit of space here, and we can stick the rest with the heat sinks on there. So we get our heat sinks on there. Go to the hangar. The other way to fix heat in this game is your ship enhancements. We can take my range off there, so I gotta sacrifice my nice range I had and go into here. So this weapon cooling 0.5 per second is very effective. It adds more than 5 per second on your ship. It's based on your ship class and all that kind of stuff, but it ends up being way more than 5 on your base value at the bottom. It's very effective, but for the bigger weapons like this, it's heat generated. Obviously, it's going to be better than that. no matter the size. For if you're going over top of 100 and 200 range, you're going to need that. Oh yeah, I need the weapon cooling thing. That's what I need before I forget. We're using another cool thing. If you're using a burst weapon like that, you can go into weapon cooling, which you might not use very much. Where is it? It's so hard to find everything. We should just type it in there or something like that. That would make it a lot easier to find it. There it is, hypercooling. Here's our hypercooler, and I gotta make sure I have some liquid nitrogen. It just uses one liquid nitrogen, and it lasts for like whatever 12 seconds or whatever when you're using it for weapon wise. But yeah, now that that's added in there, we got our heat sinks. Now our heat is down to 163 a second, and the heat on the weapon says 338. So all that stuff was lowered down. We're half the value, and we can double up. So I got extra heat sinks, and I can handle the extra power. I went a little bit overboard on it, I believe, from my last try. But let's go ahead and try it. You can just, charge it up, activate the cooling system, and then fire off our laser and see what we got. There we go. So we got 7 seconds of that overpowered laser going off to devastate anybody that's going to be in front of you. So there we go. It lasted. We were able to fire it off with that weapon cooling going on. Yeah, 327. So that's more than enough to do it, because you have your own heat little barrier right there. Now this thing option right here to actually boost your weapon is something that you're probably not going to want to do with these type of weapons, because the effect is you get I think it's 30 to 33% more damage, but it'll cost you 100% more in energy if you don't have the extra 15% on there. So yeah, this 2,900, you boost it up, it's now 5,300, and I got the 15% off skill going on there in the heat too. So now I wouldn't be able to fire this, I wouldn't have enough energy, and I would get, but it is way a lot more damage. But the damage overall of 30% versus what you can do is not really worth it. But you can use, maximize your use of the weapon cooling system on other weapons if you wanted to, and overcharge your weapons that way. I don't think this overcharge will have any effect on my railgun. Let's go to the railgun and go there and take effect on there. Yeah, so this railgun, it uses more energy and heat, but since it doesn't really use anything, I can freely up it to that 11k. So the other thing there, and I can add up to 14k. So yeah, you can do that on this one here. There's not going to be any effect on the weapon. So that is another neat thing you can do with the railguns, is you can overclock it without any negative effects, because you're going to be able to fire this no matter what, and it still uses like no energy. You're going to have that 190 energy that you buffed it up with, and that extra 3k damage right there. It doesn't hurt. Well, that 3k damage would be another 6k damage. So that's another reason why to use the railgun. So now let's go into all the weapons. So we covered your overpowered weapons that you can build in this game. Let's cover the basic crafting thing. So I'm hopefully that you guys wanted to know how to do the best weapons first, versus the explanation of how all these other weapons might work. But this is what I'm doing here. This is going to be the last part of this video, and we're going to go over the different weapons here that you can make and what they can do. So most of this is self-explanatory on what they can do. The only the blue lasers, and you get extra range. So I like the purple lasers myself, because they have the best damage for the range value on them, because it gives an extra range for the lasers. The ion core, we don't use that at all, because it just doesn't do any damage to the ship, and just hurts the shields a little bit more. The plasma core, it uses too much energy and too much heat. It does do the more damage, so it's good for the other big weapons there, but I usually don't use these because I get more effect off of the other weapons there, and its range and projectile speed is pretty slow too for its cost. The small and large warheads, basic, simple, faster and more of them type of a deal. Mine cores, they pretty much suck. You gotta stack these up. They drain the ammo way too much. You're gonna run out of inventory space before you can actually use these effectively in big fights. And then of course, the explosions in this game hit you too. And but at least you don't get double tapped by them. You can't set off your own mines, but you can get hit by your no, I don't think you can get hit by your own warheads at least. But when they do explode, they do hit you too. And same with the torpedoes. When they explode, they hit you too. They have no firing rate and range. So when you fire these off, the range is 15. It's going to go that far and it's going to blow up. And its explosion damage radius is 15. So it might just hit you too if you're not moving. Torpedoes are used by your ship's momentum. So the faster you are moving when you fire it, the torpedoes will be going that speed too. So if you're going speed 100, your torpedoes will be 105, because you get the extra 5 on there. So they'll be going plus that projectile speed. So their ship speed plus its projectile speed is how you use the torpedo. So just move your ship towards the guy and fire and slam on your brakes. So they're tricky to use, but they're incredibly powerful for damage and really good at one-shotting guys once you know how to use them. Quantum Pulse Core is pretty much garbage in this game. I tried using it so many ways, it doesn't work. It double taps you too because it counts as a hit on explosion like missiles. Missiles, when they hit the guy, that counts as an impact, and when they explode, it counts as another explosion. So that's why you can see some extra damage numbers going off. That is what I believe is what is happening with the missiles. They get double hitted like the railgun does, but the Quantum Pulse Core does this too, I noticed. So when you fire it off, you get hit because the target is you. So you get hit and then the explosion hits you. So you get double hit, and the enemies around you that you're trying to hit, they only get hit once, type of a deal. So overall, this thing doesn't work. You take more damage than the enemy does, basically, and you stack them up. You can do enough damage to kill yourself. I've done this and put this in the charged weapon slot in the front. It doesn't work. You just end up dying. It's funny, but yeah, you can make your own weapon like that. But just don't use the pulse core. Kind of sucks. In the railgun, we explained, yeah, the piercing effect. You can double tap guys. It's high damage, high range, high speed. You need ammo for it and stuff like that. It's just, your slow fire, crit damage type thing to devastate guys from far away. It's kind of hard to use it. If you have your gunners using it, they'll probably miss half the time. But who knows? Depends how far they are and if they're moving or not. And repair gun core. So that covers the basics on the weapons. Now let's go to the other effects on the weapons, and that is like the mining core is to take a look at right there. The Vulcan does, that's a self-explanatory. Ignores the shields. It's a lot weaker. Ignores the shields. Cannons. You can add other effects like explosives on it and stuff like that. But let's cover the different mods on here. So the heavy mount, we explained that one already. The point defense, it's nice to use this one. It cuts your range by a lot, but it doesn't cut your damage in half. So that is a nice thing to do. It cuts your space in half, so you can add double the amount. So to double the amount, it makes a nice big difference on there, I would say. So let's get rid of the mining laser core and go to the purple one here. On continuous. So if we have this on continuous, we put it on point defense 2, and right now it is 168, and for the space we have to add another core to make up for it. Yeah, so we're not losing, it's 168, it should be 80, so we're not losing half the damage. So that's why point defense is pretty handy. You're just losing a whole bunch of range, but the heat cost and energy cost goes down by a lot too. So if you're worried about heat and energy at the start of the game, go for a point defense weapon. It's also gets the effects that you can destroy those missiles that are trying to kill you and hit the drones. So you get a lot of effect out of it. You lose some damage and range, but you get that whole nice boost on that energy cost to actually use these things, making point defense really handy. Now we can go back to the mining core lasers, because the mining is, it says it's a lot weaker, right? It says it's only 5 damage versus a purple 13 that's half the damage, but it's automatically continuous for its size. So it's a size 1 continuous, so we can add more cores to up the damage, and that makes the damage close to the same, but you just lose a lot in range, and they're also cheaper on heat than regular lasers. So making mining lasers really bad at range, but when you go to ship enhancements and stuff like that, and you add the plus 20 of the range, that gets added in on top, which means you don't have to worry about this doesn't get cut in half. And same with the ship bonuses. If a ship has a bonus of range, it gets added in on top, and same with the gunners, it would get added in on top too. So we don't have to worry about that stuff getting cut in half. We'll go back to the crafting menu, and there we go. So yeah, go in there, and if you really want to make some devastating weapons that started the game that you can actually manage on your small ships, put the point defense 2. Double stack that low heat cost. So yeah, this goes up to space 1. So you get the constant beam effect. You can hit lasers and stuff like that. It really kills the range, but you can really add these. You can add these things in there and add more cores. If you got a space 2 one, for an example, your small ship there, it has 15 heat per second for your small ships. You don't need to modify it. You can stick a little core like this and have it point defense and have it continuous. Add 4 cores in there. If you can build this thing, you have a very effective weapon that can damage meteors and be just all around purpose for a weapon. For its all around purposes, it's better than what you can do for other stuff. Because if you want to do other things in the game, like go for the high damage, you're gonna have to do things like use rapid fire and stuff like that, which is going to take a whole bunch more energy and stuff like that to actually use these things if you want to actually add all these special effects. Now these boosters are pretty self-explanatory. If you have continuous effects, speed's not going to do anything. Range is always handy. You're definitely going to always want a damage booster and maybe add some heat sinks for most of the laser weapons that you're going to be making in this game. And slow fire, it's not really effective for heat-wise and energy-wise. It's something you're going to do for bigger ships that have like the bursting like I showed you, because continuous is just way better than everything else. And it really sucks on the energy cost at 900% there. It kind of really blows. But the 200% damage and extra space is It's just really nice to have continuous versus shooting stuff, because when you shoot stuff, you have to worry about the projectile speed, and then you're going to have to up the speed with boosters so you can actually maybe hit guys before they move out of the way, type of a deal. Burst is its own little thing on there too. Burst is nice. You get the 3 little shots that go off, and for the missiles you got to fire them off separately yourself, so it's on a mouse clicking when it's on a burst. But it's a good effect to use if your weapon can have it on there. Versus the other things. And armor piercing is nice. It gives you that 25% chance to crit, and you lose a little bit of damage, but that's worth it. And it costs less energy, so that's one way to lower your energy cost if you have something that can actually use that. And explode, that really kills your damage. You can't explode your lasers. Obviously, that'd be interesting if you could. But for like cannons and stuff like that, if you really wanted to go into burst and explosions, and that's some of the guys you might see might have this effect down there where they have explosive and then burst, so you get hit 3 times and explodes 3 times, and that overwhelms your shields and your shield regeneration by a lot when they do something like this. So you can do that to them too. So you can make your own little explosions there. But the more explosions you add, the less damage you're going to get, and the bigger the area. It's not really worth it. You got to minimize to max this. If you go too high in an explosion, you're going to be hurting yourself, but explosions do have a knockback too, of that kind of thing. Time fused, I never really use this. You can, and we'll try it. It doesn't work on the mines, at least, but yeah, you can use it to make things explode where you want them to explode, type of a deal. But that is it. You already know what charging does, and what the different speed boosters do. Everything else is pretty obvious on how to use them, I believe. I think that covers everything on here on what to do for the weapons. And if you're looking for the best, for torpedoes, it's pretty much the same thing. You add the torpedo slot. If you want the most damage, since you're going to be going fire, you go that. You can overload it. If you want to lower the damage and get some more crit in there, you can put the armor piercing on there, and you can add charging on there too. You can overload the crap out of these. That's all I did. And then if you really want to, you can do the explosion radius more, but we don't really need to on these things. I can't get rid of explosion radius, unfortunately. But yeah, the radius, you can just keep adding more explosion radius if you want to try and kill yourself more often with these things, basically. But yeah, it has a nice big explosion radius already, which means you other effects in the game can infect it a little bit better than what you can by wasting skills on it. But you build a torpedo like this, and it will affect your weapons out from your other ships. That will be very effective to use. I can show you one right now. There we go. It just, your ship moves, you charge it up, and then you fire. And then you can pull off to the side and watch it blow up. So that is an example of their torpedo firing. And well, that was like 6 torpedoes firing at the same time. And which is, 6 torpedoes on a Class 2 ship using the little dragon here. So stay tuned for the next video where I go into the details on building ships like this up and getting the maximizing effect on that and killing bosses and stuff like that. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.